the city with a skyline punctuated by architectural marvels. It was inside this edifice that the best in the world of NHRA Championship drag racing gathered in black tie elegance to honor the participants in the first ever invitational-only All-Star race. The superlative racing surface at the Texas Motorplex was on the mind of every racer as they thought ahead to the performance potentials.
Well, I tell you, I look for the 280-mile-an-hour barrier to be broken, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit if Daryl Gwynn doesn't get into the teens.
I'm going to be the quickest. I don't know who's going to steal the limelight and be the fastest, but the quickest is what wins the races, and that's what I'm after.
Having found out about Top Fuel's wish list, we sought out the hopes of the funny car division.
I think with the atmospheric conditions we're seeing, the cool weather, you'll see 530s for sure at over 273, 74 miles an hour.
You think both ends of the national record could go this weekend?
I think they'll be obliterated. The 548's a little soft at this racetrack with these conditions. I think it'll move down in a hurry. And I think Oswald and a couple of other cars, plus ourselves, at 268 is also soft. I think they'll both go.
Among the distinguished gathering were the guys from Pro Stock. We checked with the many-time world champion, Bob Glidden.
Well, I hope the car to beat is the red and white Motorcraft Thunderbird. The performance level will be probably unbelievable because of the great track here in Dallas and the 60-degree weather.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and welcome to the Texas Motorplex at Ennis, Texas, just a few miles south of Dallas. This is the inaugural running of the Winston All Stars, matching the 10 best drivers in each of the 3 professional categories of championship drag racing. Since that formal affair at the Crescent Hotel in Dallas, some of the dreams described there have become a reality. In Top Fuel, Daryl Gwynn, as he has so many times in the past, established a new all-time low elapsed time for Top Fuel dragsters, 5.17 seconds. In Funny Car, the quickest man in the sport, Kenny Bernstein, became even quicker. He ran 5.41 seconds in qualifying. But the big surprise came from a young man by the name of Mike Dunn. He became the fastest man ever in a Funny Car at over 273 miles an hour. In Pro Stock, Bob and Etta Glidden ended up at the top of the list as Bob drove his Ford Thunderbird to the quickest elapsed time ever for the category of Pro Stock, a 7.31 second elapsed time. We're moments away from the start of competition in the first ever Winston All Stars. The original field of 10 has been narrowed to 8 in each of our 3 professional categories. But first, let's join Steve Evans.
Dave, the incredible performances we're seeing here at the Motorplex are due primarily to the construction of the racetrack. It's the only all-concrete quarter-mile in drag racing, and the surface is so non-porous that the traction is, well, incredible. But like all racetracks, it has its own personality, a dark side, if you will. For one thing, the racing groove is very narrow. If you get out of it at all, you better know how to use that steering wheel, as Pro Stock driver Dempsey Hardy found out in qualifying. Now, a Pro Stock car, unlike a NASCAR stock car, has big, wide, slick rear tires, and they don't like to slide like this. They want to dig and flip the car. Dempsey did an incredible job of keeping that Oldsmobile right side up.
Just got out of the groove down there and started shaking and bouncing around a little bit, and then I let off of it, and I just couldn't get it back. It just kept bouncing and wouldn't come back.
It was almost a NASCAR-style spin. It looked like a Grand National stock car.
Well, what happened is it kept going left and then right, and it just wouldn't straighten out. And then just came on around.
Glad to see you again.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you.
Now, the funny cars in qualifying really had some scary experiences right here at the finish line. They found that they couldn't steer their car. There was so much traction, their front wheels were off the ground at 270 miles per hour. So a lot of rear spoilers have been modified to eliminate some of the downforce, and weight has been added to the front axles of some of those cars. So all in all, the traction is here. Dealing with it is the challenge.
The very best in drag racing are here for this all-star only event. The 10 best drivers in each of the 3 professional categories, selected on the basis of their finish in the Winston World Championship point standings in 1986. Each of the 10 drivers had 3 qualifying attempts to make this final field of the 8 best in the world, and now Top Fuel's ready to go. Our first pair bring Connie Coletta and Dan Pastorini to the starting line. Coletta, whose career spans more than 2 decades, finished out 1986 in the number 5 position, while Dan Pastorini, in his first full season as a Top Fuel racer, earned enough points to finish 7th. The weather's changed dramatically since qualifying. It's cloudy, windy, and cold. The question, what kind of performance can we expect? close race. Pastorini answers that question about performance. 5.23 seconds at over 272 miles an hour is time. Our slow motion replay shows how Coletta got the whole shot. In other words, he left the starting line ahead of Pastorini. Coletta's early half-car length lead was gradually diminished until Pastorini powered ahead to take the win by less than a full car length and only a 1/10 of a second difference in elapsed times.
If this man looks happy, it's because he just ran the quickest elapsed time of his life at a 5:23 in a great drag race.
I knew it was quick. Connie was right there. You never can count that old guy out. He's been having his troubles lately, but he's always capable of stepping up, and I think he gave me a little lesson on a whole shot, and we had to play catch-up after that, but these guys did a great job making that thing run.
Big change in the weather since qualifying. Is it better or worse?
Oh, it's much better. There's about 1,000 feet difference. Yesterday it was about right around 600, 800 feet. Now it's 600, 800 feet below sea level.
Talking air density here.
You're talking air density, and it's there's going to be some serious numbers run today, some serious racing, I'll guarantee you that.
See you in the semifinals.
Okay, thanks.
That improved air density means much more power. The 1987 NHRA Winston All Stars is being brought to you by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. And by Fram Bendix Autolite, all quality products of Allied Automotive. And by Budweiser, for all you do, this Bud's for you. We'll be right back with more Top Fuel action. The dreams of a younger generation showing on the face of this young man as he looks on into Dan Pastorini's pit area. The normal maintenance work going on that 3,000 horsepower racing engine, preparing it for the semifinals of this all-star competition. Back on the starting line, our next pair ready to go in the first round as Eddie Hill is in the near lane, the Texan out of Wichita Falls, racing against Pennsylvania's finest Joe Amato. Amato, the recent winner of the NHRA Gator Nationals, finished on top in 1984 when he won the world champion title. He finished last season in the number 4 spot. His competition has the honor of being the fastest car on this racetrack this weekend. Eddie Hill has set top speed of the meet at over 277 miles an hour. We're in the first round of competition of the 8 best top fuel dragsters in the world. A good start for both drivers. And look at Eddie Hill go. At the finish line, Hill, by more than a car length, wins the race with another 270-mile-an-hour run, 271, but his elapsed time, a great 5:23. In replay, you can see again that Hill had this race practically wire to wire. The small front wheels on Hill's car just dancing off this concrete racing surface. It's fairly close at the middle of the racetrack, but by the finish line, Hill is the dominant factor.
This is starting to sound like a cliche. Another career best, this time for Eddie Hill at 5:23.
5:23, fantastic. I love it. I love it.
Any problems down the racetrack? Tell me about the run itself.
The run itself, the car shook hard leaving, and I thought I was fixing to have to abort the run, but I just drove right on through it. I thought maybe I couldn't. This one time it drove through the shake, and it looked like I drove past Joe, and I just tried to do my thing, and then the last half of the course felt like it ran like a rocket. It really felt great. No problems other than a little shake at the start. A lot of shake at the start.
That's one of your biggest victories, to defeat Amato.
Oh, yeah, especially after what he did last weekend or at the last race, you know, and world champion and everything. Oh, it's sweet. Yeah, that's great.
Drive it, he did. Eddie Hill goes to the semifinals.
Steve, that's a happy man. That's Eddie Hill from Wichita Falls, Texas, receiving a congratulatory hug from his wife, Ersie. And here is the quickest man in this entire sport. This is Darrell Gwynn, 25 years old, out of Miami, Florida. He has got a 5.17 second elapsed time to his credit. He's racing against Dick LaHaye, who finished 3rd in the world last season, qualified here in the number 5 spot, not quite 2/10 of a second behind Darrell Gwynn. When we talk about elapsed time, we're talking about the amount of time it takes to travel a 1/4 of a mile distance in a straight line from a standing start. That 2/10 of a second could multiply out to more than 2 car lengths at the finish line. And look at the wheel stand. Darrell Gwynn has to shut it off. Dick LaHaye gets the break of the race, and LaHaye advances to the semifinals with a very strong 5:24, 276 miles an hour. Certainly no slouch in the performance department, but what a surprise for Darrell Gwynn. He drops the hammer on the car on the starting line, and the front end goes straight up in the air. This is very reminiscent of what happened to Gwynn's idol Don Garlits last season when Garlits started into a giant wheel stand, but he did not back out of it in time, and his very similar top-fuel dragster literally turned over backwards. Obviously, that did not happen to Darrell Gwynn, but this miscue cost him the race against Dick LaHaye. This is the third time that we have seen Darrell Gwynn establish a new all-time low ET mark, but then fail to win the race. Back on the starting line, the world champion Don Garlits starting his burnout procedure. Garlits is racing against Hank Endres from Pennsville, New Jersey. Endres coming into this field as an alternate, replacing the number 6 finisher in the world last season, Gary Ormsby. Endres, with more than 20 years of experience, has yet to win an NHRA national event title, but everyone knows the story of Don Garlits. 3 times he's won the world championship, 35 times he has been in the winner's circle at an NHRA national event. Garlits qualified with a fine 5.26 seconds. That put him in the number 2 spot. He has the choice of lanes by virtue of the better qualifying number, and he took the lane nearest the camera, and problems for Hank Endres. The motor's spinning fire as he leaves the starting line. Garlits through the quarter mile. He only runs a 5.41 second elapsed time at only 259 miles an hour. A performance fall off for Don Garlits. Endres, lots of smoke coming out of the back of the car. His race was over as soon as he left the starting line. As we see again in replay, the car in the far lane instantly spitting fire out of the left-hand side of the engine. Serious problems for Hank Endres and a big break for a subpar performance by Don Garlits. If Endres had been able to duplicate his qualifying time of a 5:35, we'd have had a big upset, but we didn't. That put Don Garlits against Dan Pastorini in the semifinal, with Pastorini having the lane choice. The other pair finds Dick LaHaye against the surprising Eddie Hill, with Hill having choice of lanes. On the starting line, the fiberglass creations that are the crowd favorites. These are funny cars. And that is the world champion, Kenny Bernstein. The transplanted Texan is racing against Johnny West, the man that recently finished in the runner-up spot at the Gator Nationals and ended up number 5 in the world last season. Against him, though, the man that has dominated competition in funny car, the world champion, Kenny Bernstein, the quickest man in the sport. He ran 5.41 seconds in qualifying to hold down the number 1 spot here at the Texas Motorplex. This is round number 1 racing, the 8 best funny cars in the world at the All Stars. Into the staging beams creep both drivers very carefully. There'll be 2 lights at the top of the tree in each lane indicating they're ready. The starter throws a switch, a flash of amber, and green. And Bernstein just drives away. The quickest elapsed time in the history of the sport, 5.39 seconds. Bernstein's speed at the end of the quarter mile, 263 miles an hour. With his teammate is Steve Evans.
Well, Darrell Gwynn's car is already in the truck. And I talked earlier about the challenges of traction. And a challenge for Darrell was to keep the front end on the ground. And even the longest car in drag racing was unable to do that.
Yeah, it surprised me enough that that long car did that. You know, I never thought that we'd need wheelie bars here. We brought them here, and after we ran 5:17, we figured we didn't need them. But I did the dry burnout, and I come back, and everybody on the whole team kind of walked around the front of the car and was grinning like, you know, this thing's really going to run. And it got me all hyped up. So amazingly enough, I was still able to drive under those conditions of being hyped up. I can see how easy it'd be for a man to go overboard like Garlits did. You know, he went over backwards, and as hyped up as I was on that run, because I knew it was going to run a low 5-second run at well close to 280 miles an hour. I was really pumped up about it. It's amazing that I didn't go over backwards myself.
You're still a little pumped up.
Yeah, I guess you would say that.
Sorry to see you so early.
Well, thank you.
Darrell Gwynn out of competition, but obviously pleased with the overall performance of his car. The benefactor of the Darrell Gwynn wheel stand, Dick LaHaye, he's preparing his car.
Welcome back to the Winston All Stars. I'm Steve Evans along with Dave McClellan. And Dave, after Big Daddy Don Garlits posted that first round win at 5.41 seconds, he was in no mood to be talking to me. He was concentrating on getting back to the pits and finding 5:20 elapsed times like everyone else. And his mood hasn't changed. He just came out of the trailer where he performs all of that black magic. He and Herb Parks conferring. They feel there's not enough fuel going into the engine. They only have one fuel pump. The other cars have two. So it'll be interesting to see what indeed they accomplish here in the pit area. Right now, it's time for more funny car action. I'm headed down to the other end.
And Steve, as we have seen so many times before, Don Garlits is just the man to make things happen. On the starting line, Tom McEwen doing his burnout. Now, obviously, this is not McEwen's regular car. He and his longtime friend and sponsor, Billy Bones, decided to leave the Corvette on the West Coast. Today, Tom McEwen is driving the car owned by Raymond Beadle. He's racing against John Force. Force finishing 4th in the world last season, and he's got his work cut out for him, as McEwen qualified in the number 2 spot with the quickest ride of his life at 5.45 seconds. All of this at the wheel of the borrowed car from Raymond Beadle. John Force has an unenviable record. 9 times he has been in the finals of an NHRA championship event. He has yet to win one. They're staged. Force has the advantage off the starting line. But look at McEwen go. Tremendous consistency. 5.47 seconds elapsed time. His speed over 254 miles an hour. So Tom McEwen, driving the car owned by Raymond Beadle, advances into the semifinals. This is the fastest man in funny car racing today, Mike Dunn. Driving the Oldsmobile owned by Joe Pisano, Dunn is racing against Tim Gross. While they complete their burnouts, let's go to the far end of the track. Steve Evans is with Tom McEwen.
You know, these Texas fans are calling you the Blue Goose.
Billy Bones is going to call me more than that if we don't win this race.
Well, at least it's not going to cost him any money this weekend. You got another car.
Well, if we hurt this car, it's going to cost him.
The Blue Goose, of course, a play on words, combining the longtime nickname of Tom McEwen, the Mongoose, and the Blue Max of Raymond Beadle, the Blue Goose, Tom McEwen. Backing up in the near lane is Mike Dunn. He ran over 273 miles an hour in qualifying. That run at 5.48 seconds put him in the number 3 spot. Tim Gross finished 9th in the world last season, qualified here in the number 7 spot at a 5.61 second time, driving the car owned by Whitmore and Reed. Dunn winning the U.S. Nationals title last season. Now with that credit of the fastest speed in all of funny car racing. Look at Tim Gross go. But Mike Dunn again with lots of power comes through at the finish. Mike Dunn at 5.47 seconds once again. Over 273 miles an hour. An incredibly consistent performance out of Mike Dunn. The crew for Ed McCulloch starting up that supercharged nitro-burning engine, the fiberglass body coming down to cover it all, including McCulloch. He qualified very well with a 5.49 second elapsed time. Let's go once again to Steve Evans.
Well, that one light will give you the privilege of racing Kenny Bernstein in the second round.
Got to race him sooner or later. Might as well be next round.
Okay, see you then.
And Mike Dunn, he doesn't seem to be awed in the least by having to race Kenny Bernstein in the semifinals. And it's a cold crowd looking on. The weather taking a turn for the worse from yesterday. In fact, there is rain forecast sometime later today. Here's Billy Meyer, the builder of this Texas Motorplex. Meyer finishing 3rd in the world last season against Ed McCulloch, who finished in the number 6 spot in the World Championship points chase. But there seems to be some problems with McCulloch's car. The crew, Bernie Fennerly, the crew chief, and the rest of the crew trying to rock the car. Obviously, it is stuck in reverse gear. It will not go forward. They shut it off. The body comes up, and McCulloch comes out of the car. A bye run for Billy Meyer. He gets the single as McCulloch takes off his gloves. He's starting to take off his helmet as he walks back to the pit area. Certainly not the outcome of this race that he had hoped for. Meyer gets the single. He doesn't lift. He's aiming for lane choice. And Meyer, elapsed time 5.60 at 260 miles an hour. Ed McCulloch taking a very lonely stroll, obviously not wanting to talk to anybody. The semifinal pairings finds Billy Meyer against Tom McEwen, with McEwen earning the lane choice. The other match finds the quickest car in history, Kenny Bernstein, against the fastest car in all of funny car racing, Mike Dunn. The funny car semifinals at the All Stars. Back in the pit area, Kenny Bernstein's crew, headed by Dale Armstrong, are hard at work preparing his car for the challenge of Mike Dunn. We'll be right back to the Texas Motorplex. Back at the Winston All Stars, if you'd like Dan Pastorini's autograph, make a date to be at State Capitol Dragway near Baton Rouge, Louisiana for the NHRA Cajun National, coming up May 22nd through the 24th. You'll get a chance to meet Dan and all the superstars of drag racing, plus see all the excitement of an NHRA championship event, like that which Steve found earlier.
The great thing about NHRA Championship drag racing is that everyone is welcome in the pit area, up close, taking pictures, getting autographs, having a ball. And not only are there hundreds of race cars to see up close, there's also a lot of terrific displays that travel the entire tour. Under this stylized tent, not only is there a lot to see, there's something very special to do. Let's go inside. Inside the tent, a pair of Christmas tree starting systems have been set up, identical to the one out on the racetrack. And here fans, 4 at a time, are invited to sit in these kind of link trainers with a steering wheel and a throttle pedal and see if they can cut a good reaction time, just like maybe their favorite professional drag racer. And if they do, they're awarded a chip by one of these pretty hostesses, and that's good for a prize. Now, this has only been around less than a year, and already 500,000 people have tried their luck on the Christmas tree. Also in here are video monitors with pertinent information on today's race and videos of earlier competition. And Dave, I think I recognize that voice.
Steve, there's always plenty more to see, like earlier today when we watched the wild and woolly competition in top alcohol funny car. The final was a race between Brad Anderson and Pat Austin. Anderson was in the far lane, Austin was in the near lane. Anderson has had a remarkable comeback from a near-fatal accident he suffered about mid-season last year. These cars very similar to their nitro-burning counterparts. The difference is they use methanol for fuel. Both drivers staged very carefully the All-Star title at risk. Anderson had the advantage off the starting line, and he had the power, recording an elapsed time of 6.22 seconds at over 224 miles an hour. Brad Anderson, the winner.
Brad Anderson, you did it. Boy, was it. You are back, indeed. After crashes and blower explosions, you've won it.
Thank you very much. This is a great race, and I thank the people from Winston. It's great.
Tell me about that particular race against Pat Austin.
Well, I just wanted to show him I'm not dead yet. We old guys have been stumbling lately, and we tried hard.
Another exciting category at all NHRA national events is the top alcohol dragster field. Brian Raymer, the former world champion, came from Colorado, while Bill Walsh brought his alcohol dragster all the way from Pennsylvania. Going into the final round of top alcohol dragster, Brian Raymer had the lane choice. He selected the lane the furthest from the camera, putting Bill Walsh closest to you. Top alcohol dragsters, similar to their funny car counterparts, run on a methanol fuel. No nitromethane is used in these vehicles. Both drivers left the starting line at the exact same moment, but the power advantage was definitely Raymer's. He won the race handily with a 6.36 second elapsed time at over 216 miles an hour.
Well, it's been a while, but Brian Raymer still knows how to find the winner's circle. A 6:36, nice one.
Thank you very much, Steve. Boy, it's good to be back in the groove again. We've been out for so long, I didn't know if we were going to have another day again, but...
Nobody tougher to race than Bill Walsh.
He's always a tough one. 3 world championships in a row is anybody's hero.
And your driving was dead on all day.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I've been out of it for so long, I just had to do something to get back into it again.
Back in the pit area, the work is underway on the factory hot rod of Warren Johnson. This Oldsmobile is the second quickest car in all of Pro Stock racing. We'll be seeing Pro Stock competition in just a few moments as the Winston All Stars continue here at the Texas Motorplex. McClelland along with Steve Evans, and in the Mike Dunn pit area, it's a calm, cool, collected crew as they go about their task readying the Oldsmobile Funny Car for the semifinals of Funny Car Eliminator. They're racing against Kenny Bernstein, the quickest in the world. This Winston All-Star race has had tremendous competition, not only in Funny Car, but in the factory hot rods, the Pro Stocks. We're looking at Jerry Ekman, the driver of the Orndorff and Ekman Camaro from Ventura, California. In this, the semifinal round, Jerry Ekman is racing against Warren Johnson in the Oldsmobile Forenza. Johnson qualified in the number 2 spot with a fine 7.33 second elapsed time. Johnson, back in 1986 in the World Championship points chase, finished in the number 2 spot. In the first round here at the All-Stars, Johnson raced against Don Kuntz, who finished 7th in the world last year. It was a race between 2 identical Oldsmobile Forenzas, but Warren Johnson had more horsepower and won the race. That earned him the right to come back into the semifinal round to race against Jerry Ekman. Ekman finished 8th in the world last season. In the first round here, he raced against Gordy Rivera. Rivera finished 10th in the world, qualified well at this event, and gave Ekman all he could handle in the first round of competition. Watch Rivera in the far lane. He made this a very close race. Ekman, by about a half a car length, earned the right to race Warren Johnson here in the semifinals. The Texas weather continuing to deteriorate, but we have not seen a drop-off in the level of performance. These factory hot rods, the Pro Stocks of NHRA Championship drag racing, very sophisticated race cars. Some limitations, though. Only 500 cubic inch maximum displacement. 2 4-barrel carburetors are allowed. They must weigh 2,350 pounds, no less, and that includes the driver, and they must run on racing gasoline. Warren Johnson has his Oldsmobile in the far lane. Jerry Ekman, one of the best Camaros in the world, in the near lane. Both are staged, and it's a good start for both drivers. Warren Johnson has the advantage at the mid-course and wins the race handily. Johnson with an even quicker elapsed time, 7.32 seconds at over 187 miles an hour. Back at the starting line, our next pair. The Ford Thunderbird of the world champion, Bob Glidden, and the Chevrolet Camaro of Joe Lapone. Lapone in the far lane of the track finished 5th in the world last season. In some 5 years of pro stock drag racing, Joe Lapone has won himself 1 NHRA national event title. In the first round here at the Winston All Stars, he raced against the hometown favorite, Bruce Allen, who finished 3rd in the world last year. And it was the upset of pro stock racing. Lapone in the near lane defeated Allen by mere inches. By virtue of a quicker reaction time off the starting line, Lapone was able to win, even though Allen had a much quicker elapsed time. He now faces the reigning world champion, Bob Glidden, who in the first round of competition raced against the Pontiac of Butch Leal. This was a rematch of the recent Gator Nationals where Butch Leal came out on top. But today, that was not to be, as the Ford Thunderbird pulled ahead by just a few inches to win.
Butch Leal congratulating Bob Glidden. He says, boy, that was a drag race. And I'll tell you, this man in blue was out in front, as you well know.
I'll tell you, Steve, I'm going to have to do something about this guy. He's got a jinx on me or something. He's been, I red lighted against him at Gainesville. I was late at Pomona against him. I knew he was going to have a perfect light, if not close to here, but I thought we could run quick enough to get around him.
7:33, 189.
That's great. Pretty good run. I may have been off a little because I was watching his car in second gear. He was probably a half a car or more ahead of me.
Thanks for a great race, gentlemen.
Yeah, it was a great race.
Good race.
2 great competitors congratulating one another, but only one can advance, and that was Bob Glidden. The Ford Thunderbird is in the near lane. The Chevrolet Camaro is in the far lane as we continue with the semifinal round of racing in Pro Stock Eliminator at the Winston All Stars. Glidden, on the basis of performance, has got to have the advantage. But remember, it was Joe Lapone that put away Bruce Allen in the first round with a brilliant hole shot. A bit of a staging battle going on as the 2 drivers certainly taking their time. Neither driver wanting to come in first. Glidden staging last, and it's a good start. Glidden gets out close to the guardrail. set. 7:45 at 184 miles an hour. Glidden at a 7:46, 187 miles an hour. As we watch in replay, you see Glidden's Thunderbird start to make a move to the guardrail. At that point, he had to lift off the accelerator. That let Lapone get ahead. From that point on, it was catch-up time for Bob Glidden. The racetrack is only 1,320 feet long from starting line to finish line. If it had been just a few feet longer, the outcome of this race might have been totally different. But as it was, Joe Lapone held on by just a matter of inches, and Bob Glidden, the reigning world champ, went down to defeat.
What mental preparation do you go through to get the mindset to cut a light like that? That's 2 in a row.
What you have to do is you don't prepare yourself. You know, I've always relied on natural instincts because you don't want to try to red light or try to guess. And when I get in my car, I just get real comfortable, and we do everything the same. I put the seatbelts on the same and everything. It's just a good day at the office today.
Stay loose, huh?
Yes, that's about it.
Okay, it will be Joe Lapone and Warren Johnson in the Pro Stock Final.
Steve, nobody shows the pressure less than Joe Lapone, but he's got to be thinking about his final round opponent, Warren Johnson in his Oldsmobile, having the lane choice as they head into the finals of Pro Stock Eliminator. In Eddie Hill pit area, all is ready for the semifinal round against Dick LaHaye at the Winston All Stars. Cloudy conditions continuing to prevail over the Texas Motorplex as we're set to go for the semifinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator here at the Winston All Stars. We may just get some rain this afternoon as the weather conditions continuing to get worse. Out on the starting line, though, they're worrying about this race. Who? Don Garlett's in the far lane, Dan Pastorini in the near lane.
Pressure's fine. Everything's looking good.
You've been listening to a two-way radio conversation between Dan Pastorini and his crew. Pastorini relating the readings on the gauges and his crew encouraging him in this race against Don Garlett. Pastorini, the first racer to successfully utilize a two-way radio to keep touch with his crew during the burnout procedure and as the cars come into stage. His competition, Don Garlett, had his share of problems in the first round when his performance level fell off considerably from his qualifying attempts. Garlett's and Pastorini both stage, and Garlett goes up in smoke. It's Pastorini into the finals.
Good job, buddy. Good job. Excellent job. Good deal. Let's get in the final. What do you say, buddy?
An elated Dan Pastorini, but for Don Garlett, his day is done at this Winston All Stars. The car going up in smoke right at the starting line. That allowed Pastorini to take what was basically a single to march into the final. The Texan Eddie Hill, the fastest car thus far at this All-Star event at over 277 miles an hour. And this is Dick LaHaye, rolling through the water and then getting those huge tires to spinning, the smoke coming off of it, indicating burning rubber, the burnout, heating up those tires. Let's go to Steve Evans.
Well, Dan Pastorini, we were eavesdropping on your radio, and you were really pumped up when you came across that finish line, excited. And I don't blame you.
Well, anytime you go up against the old man and beat him, it's fun. I just, you know, I can't say enough for what the guys did to the Coors Light Silver Bullet. They're Jimmy and Tony and Rich and John and David are doing a great job. That makes my job that much easier.
Performance fell off a bit to a 537.
Air's changed a little bit. Track conditions have changed a little bit. The air this morning was just tremendous. I mean, we had a minus, 400 or 500 feet. Now we're up to about 1,000 feet. So 1,500 feet of air density makes a big difference, but I'm sure they'll make a change here.
All right, let's find out who Dan Pastorini will race in the final round.
All right. I think so.
Steve, it will be one of the two drivers completing their burnout procedure and getting ready to stage. It will be either Dick LaHaye in the far lane or Eddie Hill in the near lane. These two drivers are very evenly matched in their performance levels thus far at this All-Star event. Both cars in the low 520s. It's anybody's race. And Dick LaHaye pulls ahead and wins handily. Daughter and crew chief Kim LaHaye obviously pleased with her dance performance. A very, very consistent 524 at 273 miles an hour, setting up our finals. Dick LaHaye against Dan Pastorini, with LaHaye having the lane choice. Back in the pit area, a man many thought would be in the finals, Don Garlits, signing autographs for the hundreds of fans that have gathered around his trailer. At the far end of the racetrack, Steve Evans has caught up with Dick LaHaye.
Well, the man from Texas gave Dick LaHaye just about all he could handle, and it took a 5:24 to handle Eddie Hill.
Well, you know, it ran 24 the first round. We thought if we could just make it repeat again, we'd do that and see if he could repeat, because he'd run a 23. And I'd never seen him, so there must have been something there.
And I think that might have demoralized Dan Pastorini, your final round opponent, a little bit. He ran a 37. You've got lane choice solidly.
Well, let's hope that it works out. Dan can step up. You know, he ran 23 first round, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens here.
Great job today.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, that should be a great race. Dan Pastorini and Dick LaHaye, we're looking forward to the Top Fuel final. While back in the funny car pit area, Tom McEwen and his car owner, Raymond Beadle, are certainly pleased with the performance of that race car. We'll be coming right back to the Texas Motorplex and the Winston All Stars. At the Texas Motorplex, I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and the weather is worsening as we move into the semifinal round of Funny Car Eliminator. The quickest car in the category against the fastest car in the category. Kenny Bernstein is the quickest. He's a transplanted Texan now living in Newport Beach, California. He's racing against Mike Dunn, driving the fastest funny car in the world. He's from Bellflower, California. As they continue their preparations for this important race, let's go to Steve with an interested onlooker.
Dave, I'm with the founder and chairman of the board of the National Hot Rod Association, Wally Parks. And Wally, just when I think I've seen the best drag race possible, the biggest crowd, the most incredible performance, NHRA tops themselves. How do you keep doing that?
Well, I don't know. It keeps happening, and it has ever since we formed the sport. And about the time we think we reach the peak, whether it has to do with performances or the production of the event, why, we pull out another one out of the hat.
And this one has a novel twist, an interesting one for the fans, an all-star concept.
Well, this is the first time we've had a chance to really produce almost an all-pro show. We have a situation where we've got the best in the field in all three professional categories, and we have a limited amount of smaller classes running so that we're more flexible. And I think that it certainly is the big time of the big times. We have an awful lot of confidence in what it's going to accomplish.
And watching you at an event, I think you may be the ultimate fan of the sport, as well as its founder.
Well, I've never gotten tired of watching the racing, although I think that 70% of my interest is still out in the pits, where you can get up close to the cars and the people and really see what it's all about.
And your love of the automobile.
Well, that's the catalyst. That's what keeps us all together, is finding some new combination for a car, and cars is what we're all about.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Let's go back to competition.
Wally Parks, one of the great gentlemen on the American racing scene. Mike Dunn in the far lane has the ultimate challenge. He's running against the quickest funny car in the world, the only such car ever to cover a quarter-mile racing distance in less than 5.4 seconds. Kenny Bernstein did it in the first round, but Bernstein's got his work cut out for him, too. Mike Dunn has run over 273 miles an hour. Oh, a great start for Bernstein. And Mike Dunn explodes an engine. But Kenny Bernstein runs the quickest elapsed time in the history of funny car racing, 5.36 seconds, while Mike Dunn brings his damaged car to a safe stop. What a brilliant race for Bernstein. He had the advantage off the starting line, then Mike Dunn explodes an engine. That virtually gives the race to Bernstein, but Dunn's got his problems. He's got to control that ball of fire, get the parachute out, his hand on the brake handle, and bring the car to a safe stop. The onboard fire extinguishing system did its job. It knocked the fire down immediately, allowing Dunn not only to see, but to keep control of the car. There's the damage. An internal problem inside the engine causing the supercharger to explode. That's what created that huge ball of fire. Let's go to Steve with the winner.
When Kenny Bernstein left the starting line, I think he may have affected the rotation of the Earth of 536.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't expect that. I knew it was good. As you know, when I got out, I said that was a good one. It was a little straighter that time, Steve. It wasn't walking on me quite as much. A little more down pressure on the back, but Armstrong horsepower again.
I don't know if you could see it or hear it, but Mike Dunn had just a terrible explosion alongside you.
No, I didn't, and I wasn't asking about him at that time. I was pushing hard.
Congratulations into the final round.
It's great. Thank you.
Bernstein into the final. Meantime, the car of Mike Dunn being taken back to the pit area. A big hug for Mike as the weekend that was highlighted by a pair of 273-mile-an-hour runs comes to an end for the Joe Pisano racing team. On the starting line, two Texas race cars are thundering, approaching those staging beams. Billy the track owner of the Texas Motorplex, against Tom McEwen, driving the car owned by Raymond Beadle. McEwen having enjoyed the best performances of his career here at the All-Star race. And once again, McEwen pulls ahead and wins the race. Elapsed time for McEwen, 5.45 seconds, 262 miles an hour. The Blue Max crew chief Dale Emery will have to find some more horsepower as McEwen races the quickest car in funny car competition, Kenny Bernstein, in the finals at the Winston All Stars. Back in Dick LaHaye's pit area, the work proceeding, getting that car ready for the final round race against Dan Pastorini, and the weather is going downhill. It's cold, it is breezy, and the rain is threatening, but the work is proceeding in hopes that there will be a final round race. There are 14 NHRA national events around the country. If you live in the Midwest, don't miss this one, the Budweiser Spring Nationals at National Trail Raceway near Columbus, Ohio, the 11th through the 14th of June. Right now, Warren Johnson and Joe Lapone are ready to stage for the All-Star Pro Stock Final. Johnson drives the Oldsmobile Forenza, the Chevrolet Camaro in the near lane, driven by Joe Lapone. Both cars into the staging beams, lots of RPM, and a great start. Warren Johnson's horsepower has him even with Joe Lapone, and Warren Johnson wins the Winston All Stars. Johnson's elapsed time, 7.38 seconds. His speed, 187 miles an hour. His wife, Arlene, and the entire family thrilled with the big victory by Warren Johnson. In replay, you can see how close this race was. Johnson in the far lane, Lapone in the near lane, neither driver giving an inch at this point. As they approach the finish line, it is Johnson just slowly beginning to pull ahead until by less than a car length he wins.
Well, there's a man that could loan you a few dollars till payday. Warren Johnson is $15,000 richer. Fine job.
Fine. This has been a rough day, Steve. I mean, the weather and everything else. And after our disastrous weekend at Gainesville, we just really didn't know what to expect. We were just hoping that things went our way for a change.
Did you go to the starting line a little conservative on the lights and on the combination?
Well, we had a little bit of a performance advantage going into the final, and we backed the clutch down just a little bit just to make sure we didn't rattle the tires, and we did rattle them on that run. I don't think the run was quite as good as the run before. I'd say probably about a middle 30, high 30.
Pretty good guess. It's 7:38. That's Arlene. Come on in here. The Johnsons. Winston All-Star Pro Stock Champion.
On the starting line, it is time for funny car. In the near lane, Kenny Bernstein, the quickest funny car in all the world. He ran a 5:36 in the semifinals, but that great run cost him. They had to change engines between rounds. The Bernstein crew, headed up by crew chief Dale Armstrong, completely changed the engine in that car. Could make a difference as he goes into the finals against Tom McEwen. But that's why Kenny Bernstein pays Dale Armstrong over $300,000 a year to turn the wrenches on this car. Armstrong, regarded by many as the premier crew chief in all of nitro drag racing. Of course, the crew chief on the Blue Max, owned by Raymond Beadle, is Dale Emery, a brilliant man in his own right, and he has given Tom McEwen the ride of his life. It has put him into the Winston All-Star Finals against Kenny Bernstein. But believe me, if Dale Emery ever had a long-sought goal in drag racing, it is to beat the big red car. It might happen today. Bernstein pulls ahead, and Bernstein wins the race. 5.36 seconds. His speed over 266 miles an hour. You've just seen the quickest side-by-side race ever in funny car competition, as Tom McEwen, oh so close, with a 5.42 second time. His speed over 231 miles an hour. Our replay shows you just how close it was. In the middle of the track, anybody's race. But at the finish line, it was the reigning world champion, Kenny Bernstein.
It's drag races like that the fans talk about on their way home. The quickest drag race, funny car drag race side by side, I think ever, a 5:36 to a 5:42.
Oh, well, I knew it was going to be good. Goose was right there and been running good all day, and it took everything we could do. Loose as a goose was the name of this thing. I was all over the racetrack.
And your crew literally built an engine under your canopy in the pits.
Well, you know, like you've seen before, Steve, we had a problem with a bearing and had to to change motors and go for it, but that's what Dale and Jeff and Jim and Charlie Mike do the best.
And even with the weather and the cold, you didn't dare back off. You can't go up there soft.
Well, you couldn't on this racetrack, and needless to say, you needed everything it could give you, to get the Budweiser Quaker State Buick down there. You got to do those things, so you couldn't back off, not with Goose running so good.
In the winner's circle, there's a check waiting for you for $30,000.
Well, I'll tell you what, this Bud's for you.
We've told you about it all day, and it has finally happened. The weather has worsened. It is beginning to rain. The Top Fuel final might be in here at the Winston All Stars. We'll find out in just a moment. The rains have come to the Texas Motorplex near Dallas, and the Winston All-Star action is ground to a halt. The track is quiet now. The people, the crowd, the racers just waiting. The NHRA officials have not yet made a decision as to when the resumption of this race will take place. And the racers were confronted with their worst enemy, waiting.
Buddy, wake me up when I gotta go, huh? I'm gonna take a little nap. Okay, can I get you anything, a pill or something? Yeah, could you get me 2 burgers, hold the fries, lettuce and tomato only, mustard, and Tony, I'm ordering dinner.
Dick LaHaye had to sit without benefit of counsel. He took this moment to challenge Dan Pastorini to a foot race. Dick LaHaye, thinking this is the way to win this event, lined up at the starting line. Watch out, guys, that track is slick. And Dick LaHaye left too soon. Pastorini, claiming a red light start by Dick LaHaye, proclaimed himself the winner. But Dick LaHaye challenged that thought and said, no, we'll decide this another way. Just a means of relieving the tension that builds up with $30,000 at stake on this single run. Steve?
Well, Dave, the foot race was a real good idea until Dan remembered he hadn't been to training camp in years, and Dick LaHaye remembered he had never been to training camp. But I got a couple of ideas. How about arm wrestling?
Well, no, wait a minute. Dan probably weighs about 220.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. How about pistols at 30 feet?
I'm a terrible shot.
He's a pretty good shot.
I know.
Well, actually, an official decision has been made. The Winston All-Stars Top Fuel title will be decided at the next race on the schedule in Atlanta, the Nationwide Auto Parts STP Southern Nationals. But there's one thing, guys, we really shouldn't let go to waste. It might spoil. You're the quarterback. You've done that.
Let me have the honors. Let me tell you something.
Thanks for a great race today. You sure tried.
Well, go. Can I squirt it now?
We'll have that coverage for you here on ESPN.
Salute.
Steve will not only be in Atlanta for those Southern Nationals and the wrap-up of this Winston All-Star race, but there will be 4 more races from the NHRA Championship Circuit seen on ESPN this season. The NHRA Winston All-Stars have been brought to you by Fram Bendix Autolite, all quality products of Allied Automotive, and by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. And by Budweiser, for all you do, this Bud's for you. Coverage of the NHRA Winston All-Stars has been a presentation of Diamond P Sports.